Welcome to Grow Getters with host Davis Michaelsen, who's looking for and discovering agriculture's most inventive side hustles.
Well, hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of Grow Getters. I'm your pal, Davis Michaelsen. We've got an interesting one here today. Typically, what we talk about here on Grow Getters is a side hustle. We've got farmers and farm people who are working the farm and doing the whole thing, but then they come up with a side business. Well, sometimes, and this may be one of those cases, I'm not entirely sure, but sometimes the side hustle can become the hustle with a capital H. I've got Penny Bowers-Shebel here with me today. In a nutshell, Penny and her husband ran a goat dairy in northeastern Ohio. To make extra income, she opens a store nearby in a small town called Formality Bridal. That's why we're here. The hook of the business is that none of the dresses cost more than $1,000. You know, wedding dresses can be very expensive. Just weddings in general. The store has been very successful. The farm is in transition. With that, let me bring in Penny Bowers-Shebel from Formality Bridal. Penny, welcome to Grow Getters.
Hi,
Thanks for being
David.
with us today.
So thrilled to be here. Thank you so much.
You betcha. Okay. The first thing we like to do here is establish a little bit of farm cred. How has farm life impacted your life? Where did you start? Let us get to know you a little bit.
Sure. So I am an adopted farmer. We'll call it that.
Okay.
So my husband's family had an old dairy farm. It hasn't been operational as such for probably 20 years. And then my mother-in-law passed, left us this wonderful gift that had been run down a little, but it was
Mhm.
the best gift we ever could have gotten. And so that took us from our sort of city life back to his farm, this family farm. And so we knew that dairy probably wasn't going to work for us. It's just a very hard industry to break into, right?
Sure.
So we thought, what can we do? How can we sort of make our living, make our slow country life? And so we decided that we were going to get some goats. And so we got American Alpine goats and filled the barn with that and ended up sort of living a very slow country, fulfilling, hard, but very satisfying life there.
Yeah. That lifestyle is a theme that runs through. In so much as sometimes we've had kids who've left the farm and said, "Heck with it, I'm going to town. I'm going to college." They finish their college degrees. They wind up back on the farm. I'm curious in your situation. So let's see, you wound up in charge of this farm in 2016, if I'm not
Correct.
mistaken.
So we inherited it a couple years prior to that, but life exists, and so we had to
Mhm.
figure out a way to get back there, make it livable because it wasn't quite livable when we moved
Okay.
in. So we had a 2-year span between making that decision and actually being able to arrive there.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, but it
Um,
was worth it. Totally worth it.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the importance and value of waiting for the right time to do something right quick while we're on the subject?
Right. So if you make decisions hastily, then you're going to end up making some mistakes along the way. And some mistakes are harder to recover from than others. So we were very methodical and strategic in the planning process to get there. What we were going to do with the barns, what we were going to do with the house, how to take the house that had been, we'll call it remodeled in the 70s, and bring it back to an 1885 farmhouse and give it that gift. So that takes some time and some planning. So we sold our house to raise some funds to do that, and then moved into a very small 700-foot cottage and lived there for a year while we were making it a place that we could actually live in, that was weatherproof, that didn't have holes in the roof, all of those things, and bringing it back. So, and frankly, there are still things that could have been done to it that we didn't do, because a farm is a lifetime event, right? You're never done with anything.
Mm,
But that was our plan. And that's how we ended from point A, which was city life, to
right.
B, in this very small, meaningful country world.
Yeah. Um, I don't know anything about goats, goat dairy, or anything like that. It sounds to me like you kind of inherited it just a little bit. What you guys were milking them? I don't understand.
Ish. We'll call it
Yeah.
more of a hobby farm, right? So we did
Okay.
have a milker. My husband is guilty of having to do some of that work for us, but primarily we'll call it a hobby farm.
Okay.
And so they were large, expensive, and the best pets in the world.
Well, and at some point, I know that there's nothing to set off a good bottle of wine, like a hunk of goat cheese and some crackers. You
100%.
had your feet in a wine store there for a while, didn't you?
Absolutely, and my husband also took, lots of courses on cheese making, so he is our
Oh,
cheese
really?
making expert. Absolutely. We really wanted to do everything that we could ourselves. So rather than join a country club, rather than going golfing, we are more salt of the earth people. Like, how do we get the most out of a farm life, whether it's crabapple trees, whether it is goldenrod for tea, whether it is goats and goat cheese and all of that stuff. So really, we did a wonderful job using every resource, whether it was not considered a resource to others, we made it a resource.
Absolutely, and that's an important thing. That's one of the things that farmers who are in it for the long haul do well, and that's find every little bit of value to get out of such a valuable operation.
Right. 100%. And I think it's often easy to overlook the earth's resources and just go to fields, right? And we just look
Mm.
at the fields as having value in farms, and we often overlook some of the other ancillary things that can feed and nourish your family.
Right, right. And so here in the present day, we wind up at Formality Bridal.
Yeah.
Before we get to it, I've written a song about it, and I'd like to share it with you. I feel like singing right now. I'm very inspired. Oh, okay, here goes. I've got $999. Baby, let's get you a dress. You'll have to live with the goats, but none of them smoke. Most of them don't make much mess.
Not true. I love that
Only
so
most
much.
of them
I
don't
hope you
make
didn't
much mess.
trademark that because I may be stealing that as my opening theme song for all my social media.
You are welcome to it. Although I
That
did
was
not check with you
amazing.
if
You
any
are
of your
so
goats are
talented.
actually. I should have checked if any of the goats are smokers. I suppose maybe, but I put in the
Well,
song none of them smoke.
none of us are smokers either. So,
Excellent, excellent. Good for you. So bring us in the loop on Formality Bridal. What's the concept? Give us a broad view, and then we'll
yep.
get specific.
So there are two stores now. So the first one went so very well that we ended up opening a second one. It was a concept that developed after we moved back from our city life into this farm life. Then I had to do something. I can't be a lady of leisure. So the opportunity was really to figure out what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be. So I love the idea of fancy stuff. I really, really do. But that's my work life. Then I love the idea of a very calm country life. And so that's my farm life. But when I approached my husband, I'm like, I think there's an opportunity in this sort of um, geographical area that is a bit depressed economically. So,
Mhm.
how do I make my way in this particular area? I love the idea of fine fabrics, of luxury things. So, wedding gowns was the first thing that came to mind. And then I thought, okay, so what happens to things like bridal gown samples, the samples that are carried in very high end stores? You'll see them like in the Kleinfeld, New York City. What happens at the end of the season when they don't sell those? So I started developing strategic relationships across the country with different bridal stores, and then I go in and I buy them in bulk, and then I bring them back to our corner of Ohio and I resell them at a very deep discount. And we have such deep discounts that brides fly into us. So they might be in Texas, but they know that we have a $5,000 gown available for $999. So it is worth it for them to fly to us to buy their gown and to take it back. So we really came onto something without even realizing the potential. We thought the potential would be just in this little tiny area of Northeast Ohio. And it turns out that is not really the opportunity. It's a business located in Northeast Ohio, but the opportunity is nationwide. So we bring in bridal gowns from the whole country. We bring in brides from the whole country, and then we sell them from our little area.
I love that so much. In 2 stores now, that Penny, that had to have been an absolute ton of legwork that you did to reach out to those suppliers and sort of shake those trees and see what you could get to shake loose. I don't know. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so most bridal stores, one of their issues that I didn't realize until I opened this is what do they do with it? So the same question I had was an issue that they were already having. So if you look at a 1,200 square foot space and you didn't sell that gown, well, now you have less space because we're not talking about bubblegum balls, right? These are wedding gowns and they take up a tremendous amount of space. So they had the same issue and I didn't know it was a problem. And when I reached out, they were more than happy to establish a strategic relationship that would work seasonally. And at the end of the season, when the designer decided to discontinue that, oh gosh, well, that now they don't have to leave it around or have it take up space. It is dead stock to them. I can bring it in here and now it's fresh and new and it is a giant savings over here. So what I thought would be a tremendous amount of legwork actually turned out to be a fairly easy situation to just go in, and almost everybody that I reached out to is like, yes, thank you. Why hasn't anybody done this? So I didn't realize that that wasn't something that had been done in the bridal world yet, but it was something that was long overdue.
So you're actually providing a service not only um, to the brides, but you're also uh, providing a service further upstream for those
Correct.
retailers, those outlets who
Right.
they just want to move this stuff.
So there's benefits on both ends. It benefits me because it helps support our lifestyle. It benefits the bride because she gets a significant savings. And it benefits the original bridal store that doesn't have the room to store something that can't be ordered or can't be used anymore. So there's lots of touch points that really benefit along the way.
You know what? I feel like singing again. I got one more for you, and then we'll talk more specifics. Formality Bridal, you just got engaged. This dress will fit into your budget, keep the change. Formality Bridal. Why are there so many goats here? Economic and
Wow.
lovely to
Love it.
wear. You've got the dress, no simply add nails, makeup, and hair. Formality Bridal on the Grow Getter Show.
Did you just freestyle that?
I wish I could say I did. I've been
Oh,
working on it. I've been
super
working on it
impressive.
a little bit.
Still
But
super
it's
impressive.
such an exciting concept here. Because everybody, every girl wants to. I'm a guy. What do I care? Okay, rent me a suit. Well, I'll put on a tie. Fine. Okay. Girls are different. They've been thinking about that day for a
They have.
really, really long
They
time, and
really,
maybe even
really
making
have.
little sketches in their Hello Kitty book and stuff. And so, wow, what a cool thing for you to be able to provide that, because they're all, because of the way that you have acquired these garments, you can offer them at a very reasonable price.
Incredibly reasonable. And yes, brides do think about this
Mm.
process from the time that they are little. And they deserve to make a memory when it comes to this too. So we are sort of a bridal outlet, but we do not skimp on that experience, right? Because just because you are on budget does not mean that you don't have the opportunity to bring the people that are most important to you and to have undivided attention of a stylist who is skilled and can bring your vision to life with your date, with your venue, with your budget, all of those things. So it really is, it ends up being a memory for a
Mhm.
bride more than you think. The other thing that surprised me is that 80% of the time, a bride walks out with something that is completely different than what she came in thinking that she
Oh,
would get.
really?
Yeah, it
Okay.
would be far more surprising to me if she walked out with what she had a picture of. That would
Huh.
be way more interesting, but they never do. They always come in with a vision, and almost always, and then they end up getting something else. So that was a big learning curve for me.
Well, I would imagine that you're able to offer a very wide variety of styles,
Mhm.
sizes, shapes, all the things.
Right. So our store has to be much larger than a traditional bridal store because a traditional bridal store will carry roughly 80 to 100 gowns, where we really need to at all times carry around 500 gowns so that each bride in her size has the opportunity to try on lots of gowns. So we generally will carry an inventory at both of our locations of about 500 gowns each.
Wow. So they're located in smaller towns, I guess.
Yeah,
That
for a
helps out the
couple of
town as well,
reasons.
doesn't it? Fill the space
Yeah.
there.
So smaller areas because for we're in Ashtabula County. That's our flagship store. That's the original Formality Bridal store, and rents are considerably lower in that area than it would be, say, in like a Columbus or something. Those rents would be higher. So our stores are generally located in more rural areas to allow us a bigger footprint for our stores.
Outstanding. In looking back from the moment that you conceived this idea to this moment here now in the present, I'm sure it was all smooth sailing. Nothing went wrong. There were no surprises, no challenges. If
That was
you
my
can think of
dream.
any,
Yeah,
I'd
that
love to
was
hear
my
about
dream.
some challenges along the way, perhaps.
Sure. So, a couple of things. My original vision for the business has changed a bit. So, it started out with thinking about what happens when a bride wears her gown and then doesn't have a need for it anymore. Let's bring those in and sell those as well. We've pivoted since then, and we no longer carry gowns that have been worn down the aisle. Now, we really just focus on new designer samples, and we focus on private labels, high-end private labels. So those are the two things we focus on now, and we have gotten away from previously worn gowns. So we did make that pivot. We also changed our name, which was originally Formality Resale, to Formality Bridal. So we've made a couple of pivots along the way. I also
Yeah.
bought a building after proving that the store was financially sound and could sustain a mortgage on top of all of the other expenses. So very early on, about 3 or 4 years into it, I bought an old abandoned church and turned that into a bridal store. And then in my other location, we are in a very sort of industrial vibe building.
Uh-huh. Um, Now I'm not personally superstitious, but I am a little stitious. Um, your decision not to offer gowns that had been worn down the aisle, does that have anything to do with superstitions or anything, or was it just not like, ah, no, we don't want to?
No, there is a real trend towards thrifting and reusing and sustainability. And I love that concept. So that was originally in my ethos. And so I liked that. But the practical implications that go along with now it's been altered to a bride. And now, how do I find another bride that is exactly that same size? So
Because you
that
probably
became
can't
the issue.
unalter them, can you? No.
Yeah, I mean, moms and grandmas might still hold on to a little bit of that superstition, but the brides today do not.
Yeah.
Thrifting is a game, is a sport, is
Yeah.
something to be looked on with as a hobby, as opposed to something that we you might have seen a couple decades ago where people are like, okay, thrifted it. I don't want to talk about it. Now everybody's out in the open and there's nothing wrong with thrifting. There's nothing wrong with sustainability. It was more of a practical implication of how do I find a bride that is exactly this size?
Penny, how do we find out more on Formality Bridal?
Yeah, we're pretty active on social media. So we are on Instagram, we are on Facebook, we have a website, formalitybridal.com. That's also where brides can see all of our gowns. They can make their own appointments. For brides that are into technology, all of that works very well for them. So we are about everywhere.
Well, Penny, before I cut you loose here, I want you to just take a moment because this is such a fantastic idea. There are other young girls and dudes out there too. There are other people out there who have ideas and they're like, ah, I don't know. I want to stay faithful to the farm. I have this idea. It's a lot to try and process. If somebody talk to that person, give them some advice. They want to start a business. They don't know what it looks like. Help them.
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, you need a supportive person behind you, because if you don't, you really won't have the confidence to continue. So a supportive person is number one. The second thing is to trust your vision. It's okay to have two very separate lives and two very separate visions. I often say that I wear barn boots in the morning and pearls in the afternoon, and it is okay to try to combine a life that makes those two things. Do not be afraid of it. You can do farming and something else.
And it seems like someone very near you is thinking maybe they can do maple syrup at the same time as well.
Yeah, so we've done that in the past and we'll continue to in this new property. So I would expect that you'll see some very interesting products that you may not be familiar with coming out next year.
Penny Bowers-Shebel from Formality Bridal. Thank you so much for being here on Grow
My
Getters
pleasure.
today. Best of luck with everything.
Oh, thank you. You've been phenomenal. Thank you so much.
Well, production support has been provided by Jack Heffron and Zach Zingula. Find Grow Getters on Farm Journal's YouTube channel and listen wherever you find your favorite podcasts. So for Farm Journal broadcast and Grow Getters, it's me, your pal, Davis Michaelsen. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hey, everybody, let's get out there and grow get 'em.
Grow Getters is a production of Farm Journal Studios, where no one grows alone.